Have you heard of the comet Elenin? Well, if you get all your news from the major news sources like NBC, CBS, CNN, Reuters, BBC, etc., no, you have never heard of the comet Elenin. There is a tremendous news blackout on this planetary object. A lot of people are wondering, is it really a comet? The only way I heard about it is because of the many videos on YouTube, and I want to thank you for bringing this to my attention. No one would know about Elenin if it weren't for the internet. Another reason why eventually the internet will be shut down. One of the most amazing mysteries surrounding comet Elenin is that it was predicted 13 years ago by the Hollywood movie Deep Impact. Now, I don't want to repeat what other YouTubers have already discovered. On this program, I want to talk about the amazing evil numerology associated with both comet Elenin and the movie Deep Impact. But first, let's take a look at the orbit of Elenin and how it will cross the orbit of planet Earth later this summer and fall. On the wall chart behind me, you can see the orbit for Earth, and you can see the elliptical orbit of comet Elenin intersecting the orbit of Earth. Now let's look at some of the important historical dates for comet Elenin. Comet Elenin first entered our solar system on November of 1994 when it crossed the orbit of the planet Pluto. 3.5 years later, the Hollywood movie Deep Impact was released, which tells the story of a very similar comet and how it strikes planet Earth. Now, in February of this past year, an amazing occurrence was the Chilean earthquake, and it seems to have been associated with an alignment between Elenin, Earth, and the Sun. And in fact, a few months later, there was another alignment on September 4th and another earthquake. I don't think these are accidental. I think we are going to see many more earthquakes from comet Elenin. Now, on December 10th of last year, the comet was discovered by the amateur Russian astronomer Leonid Elenin. In the movie Deep Impact, it's interesting that the comet is discovered by Leo Biederman. Leo Elenin, Leo Biederman. Is this another coincidence? In March 11th, there was another tremendous earthquake in Japan, and this preceded another alignment by only 4 days. Could it be that because the comet is much closer to Earth and the Sun, that its effects are occurring before the actual alignment? I think we will soon find out. And in July, the comet will cross the orbit of planet Earth. Now, 2 more significant events in the life of comet Elenin will occur on September 11th. And of course, as you recognize, 9/11 is going to be the 10th anniversary of the terror attacks in New York City. And the 2 events are that the comet will be closest to the Sun at that time. That will be its perihelion. It will also pass through the ecliptic at that time. In other words, up until then it has been below the plane of the Earth, but on September 11th it will go above the plane of the Earth. And I have indicated that on this diagram with a darker line indicating below the ecliptic and a lighter line indicating above the ecliptic. Now, I have taken this chart mainly from the JPL website, and on their diagram they do the same thing. When the comet is below the ecliptic, that is indicated by a dark blue line, and when it is above the ecliptic, by a lighter colored line. Now, several weeks following the September 11th perihelion and the breaking of the ecliptic, there is another alignment on September 27th. Now, since this alignment does not line up perfectly with breaking the ecliptic, there may not be an eclipse of the Sun on that date, as some are suggesting. On the other hand, if the comet's tail is wide enough, there could be an eclipse. And please note that 4 days before the 27th, on September 23rd, there could well be an earthquake if it follows the same pattern as the Japanese earthquake. And please note this evil number. 23, as we all know, is another way to express 666, because 2 is the number for man, 3 is the number for God, And when you put 2 in front of 3, that symbolizes the fraction 2/3, and 2/3 equals 666. On October 16th, Comet Elenin will be closest to Earth. Now don't go by the scale on this chart, because although they seem to be close together in this picture, that distance is actually more than 20 million miles. Now a few weeks later, on November 9th, Earth will pass through the debris tail of the comet. Comets have 2 different tails. One is the gaseous tail, which always points away from the sun, but there's also a debris tail that follows after the comet. We will pass through that on the first week of November, very possibly 11/9. Notice the reversal there of 9/11. I believe that will be another significant date. And on November 23rd, notice again another evil number, 1123, there will be yet another alignment between Comet Elenin, the Sun, and the Earth. Now let's go to NASA's own JPL website, where we can verify that both the perihelion of Comet Elenin and its breaking of the ecliptic plane both occur on the 10th anniversary of 9/11. Here's the JPL program for Comet Elenin. We see Elenin off here on the upper left-hand side. Over here on the bottom right, we see the date. This is set at May 1st. And I will set this in motion, and you can see the comet go through the orbit of Earth and exit up at the top of your screen. And you can see the days go by here: June, July, August, September, and Comet Elenin exits at the top of your screen and leaves approximately December. Now I will stop it, put it in reverse, and bring it back to approximately the date of perihelion. In other words, near September 11th. And I've stopped it at September 5th. So let's advance it to September 11th. And I think you will see that exactly on that date, the comet breaks the ecliptic. Because here on the left, you see the dark blue line, which indicates the comet is below the ecliptic. On the right here, you see the light blue line, which indicates the comet is above the ecliptic. Also on this date, on the lower left-hand side of your screen, you see that the comet is 0.482 astronomical units from the sun. Now if we go back just one day to September 10th on here on the right, you'll see the comet is not quite at the ecliptic, and you'll see that it is now 0.483 astronomical units. And if we advance it 2 days, on September the 12th, you will see that it's back up to 4.83 AUs. And you can see that this comet is beyond the breaking point of the ecliptic. And I will go back one day to September 11th. That is the only date that the comet is breaking the ecliptic, and that is when the comet is closest to the sun. That is its perihelion, 0.482. Now this is very unusual. Most comets have a different perihelion from the date in which they break the ecliptic. Now let's take a look at some clips from the prophetic movie Deep Impact. We are going to find that there are some amazing numerical coincidences in this film also. Now in this next scene, the Leo Biederman family is going into the safe underground bunkers, and the tunnel they go into is numbered 23. 23 is another number for the Antichrist. Also, please notice the emblem above these tunnels, because it is in the shape of a hexagram. Now in this next clip, listen very carefully, and you will hear the female astronaut start her countdown at the number 23. First she says 25, but then the captain interrupts and arms the nukes. Her countdown actually begins with the number 23. Listen very carefully.
25 seconds.
Prepare to synchronize the nukes.
23. 22. 21.
Now one number 23 in this movie would be a coincidence. 2 number 23s, that becomes pretty obviously a plan. But there are other 23s. Now in this chart, which lists Leo Biederman as the discoverer of the comet, you will notice that top center in a list of numbers is the number 23. Now, finding the number 23 is fairly obvious if you know what you are looking for. But actually, the producers of this movie tried to keep it a secret. And the same with the number 9/11. In this next scene, take a look at the clock in the upper left-hand corner. I think you will see that it reads 9/11. And after this clip, I will zoom in on the clock, and it becomes much more obvious. An even better known number for the Antichrist is 666, as found in the book of Revelation. Please notice the highway distance marker in this next clip. The number 6 is repeated for a second time in this next clip, but you have to look very carefully at the lower right-hand corner. We find the third 6 in this 666 sequence when the highway sign is shown for the third time as the comet passes overhead. Now, there are many more amazing correlations between the movie Deep Impact and Comet Elenin. And you really should look at other videos on YouTube because you're not going to find any information about this comet anywhere else. The message of the movie is that the government can hide information about disasters from the public. They can also build secret bunkers to protect the elite. And they are planning on martial law in the event of such a catastrophe. And if you cannot expect the news media or the government to tell you the truth about this comet, who can you trust? Now, the atheists are already making videos on YouTube saying that all these are just coincidences. Of course, according to them, the entire universe is a coincidence. But these are not coincidences. This is either one giant hoax or it's the hand of God. Now, if this is the hand of God, how can you find out about it? What does the Bible say? Does the Bible say to look to the government or to the news media? The Bible says that God does nothing but that he reveals it through his prophets. And in part 2 of this series, I am going to reveal that Comet Elenin is a fulfillment of Bible prophecy. And for your homework, I want you to read the book of Revelation, where Jesus opens the 6th seal. And as always, if you would like a free copy of my book, Revelation Unraveled, you can write to the address you see on your screen, or you can send me a private message to my YouTube channel.